First question on labor and education. Looming before you are the labor contracts currently left open by the current administration. How would you handle these labor contracts?
Well, first, let me thank Vicki and Queens Courier for sponsoring this great event. It's great to be here. As I campaign around the city, I can tell you that the municipal workforce, which does a great job for the city of New York, is demoralized. Many of them haven't gotten a raise in 5 years. So I'm going to do my best, without raising taxes, to provide some retroactive pay for our municipal workforce. The Independent Budget Office says it's about $4.5 billion. You hear numbers being touted about 7.8 and 10 billion. That's what the IDO says, and they don't have any agenda. And I plan on paying for it in the following way. I would want the labor leaders' approval to modernize the pension system. The city's pension system, I come from that business, and I've been around and seen other pension plans that perform much better.
Okay, that's it.
No warning, Vicki? No, like...
Can I just finish? If the New York City pension system performed as well as Toronto's, the city would save $3 billion. And that's not a one-shot deal, that's going forward. So I plan on modernizing the pension system to pay for that. I need the labor leaders and also consolidate the healthcare plans. We have 84 different healthcare plans amongst the labor unions. I'm going to merge them into one and use that leverage to save money for the city. So I plan on doing my best to provide retroactive pay, and I have a plan to pay for it.
Thank you.
Same question for Adolfo. Karen, how would you handle the contracts left unopened?
Thank you very much, Rocco. Vicki, can I take a loan from one of the candidates that's not here? A 15-second loan. Vicki, thank you. Queens Courier, everybody here who came this morning on this lovely day. It's always from Terrace on the Park in Queens. We have a gaping hole. The estimates are in the billions, from 4 to 7. We don't know exactly where that number lies, but we do know that we have a crisis that has to be dealt with. It has to be dealt with aggressively. My posture is very simple. We need transparency. We need honesty in our discussions. We cannot negotiate labor contracts through the media. We cannot allow for all this posturing that happens that evades the real issues and the real costs and the real burdens. There's going to have to be some cost sharing. We have the best municipal workforce of any American city, but this is a partnership. We have a workforce that 96% of the city workers do not contribute to their health benefits. That is unusual and rare in all of the United States. We're going to have to talk about that. The honest and open and cost-sharing relationship that we have to establish with our workforce. I think that the workforce will value their benefits more if they feel that they have a stake in it and that they are a partner in this. The federal government workers contribute 20 to 25% of their to their health care benefits. So there is this looming
10 seconds.
Thank you. There's this looming cliff that we're facing. My posture, ladies and gentlemen, will be to ensure that we go behind closed doors and we don't leave the table until we have a fair contract for the workers and for the taxpayers.
Bravo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Same question for Joe Loda. Current city contracts, labor contracts left open by the current administration.
Thank you, Rocco and Vicki. Thank you and everybody at Queens Courier and New York One for the opportunity to be here in Queens. I believe the current fiscal situation in the city of New York requires that we do not pay any retroactive pay. I will sit down with the unions. We will go from this point forward, have a fair and open agreement from this point forward on what the city can afford. The role of the mayor is to represent all of the people of the city of New York, the taxpayers of the city of New York, and it's very, very important as we work with our municipal unions. And I agree, they're some of the finest workers in the country, but you know, there have been a lot of people in the private sector who have not had raises in the last 2 to 4 years. It's not fair to give people raises for what work that's been done in the past. I've held to that pretty much my entire life. What I do believe is exactly what Adolfo has said. The City of New York's workers do not pay their fair share when it comes to health care costs. If you look at some of the managerial employees in the city of New York, they pay somewhere between 15 to 20%. The city workers who are unionized, some pay nothing, some pay 1.5%. We need to get that part of the negotiations under control and more equal to where we are overall. And then finally, as we move forward, I do agree in transparency. I think it is absolutely very important that what we do when we work with the municipal unions is that we don't have to wait until one of us up here is sworn in the day after, because we don't have enough time. All 153 bargaining units have been without a contract from anywhere from 2 to 4 years.
Thank you, Mr. Malone. Second question, George McDonald. How would you handle city contracts?
Good morning, and thank you very much for having me here. I've been pretty consistent from the beginning that I wouldn't sign as mayor any labor contract that didn't include the cost of participation in health care by the New York City municipal employees. 95% of the employees don't participate in their health care. As far as going back, you know, as Joe said, in the private sector, I'd like to go back to the beginning of when I founded the Doe Fund and get paid for what I did way back then and didn't get paid for it, but we don't do that. We don't go backwards, we have to go forwards. I also believe, going a little further, that we have too many city employees. With the technology that we have today, there are lots of things that we can do with technology that we don't need people to do. So I would be looking to shrink the size of the city government and not looking to get reelected. But I would like history to record that I did the right thing at the right time for the city, that we're all in it together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Any questions to Christine Quinn, handling current city contracts left open?
Well, thank you very much, Rocco, and Vicki, thank you for, as you always do, pulling us together. Vicki is a force of nature, and she's bringing us sunshine here in her great yellow outfit on this dreary Irish day, which George McDonald and I take full responsibility for. And let me just apologize in advance. I was here on time, but as I told Vicki, we had a conflict, and I'm going to have to leave probably before it is over, so I apologize for that in advance. But that said, just to go to the question, obviously none of us can really negotiate these contracts in this forum or in the press at all. So there's only so much detail to be fair to taxpayers and to the unions that you can have in this kind of a format, because these kind of negotiations happen in rooms, at tables, and as Adolfo or someone had already said, you stay in the room till you get it done. Now that said, we should be honest about some of the bottom line facts here. And one of the bottom line facts is that municipal workers for years haven't had raises. And they do deserve to have raises to reflect the great work they do for our city. But those raises cannot happen outside of the context of the short and long-term fiscal situation of the city. So to get there, the city and the unions are going to have to revisit things like benefits and health care. If we don't do that, we'll end up with a bill that's so big we'll either have to make deep cuts or raise taxes excessively, neither of which any of us want to do. This isn't an easy task, but that's the balance that the next mayor is going to have to find, working together with labor unions, recognizing the great work of municipal workers, and also the reality of taxpayers, of which municipal workers are as well. Thank you.
Thank you,
Right on
Mr.
time.
Quinn. Welcome, Bill Thompson and Anthony Weiner. Just joining us. You have, again, 90 seconds to answer these questions. The question first to Mr. Thompson. Again, the question is, how would you handle the current city contracts left open by this current administration?
Okay, first let me say what a pleasure it is to be here. Good seeing you, Rocco, and it's always good seeing Vicki. I can see you're going to be tough on the time this morning. So I better talk fast. I think we all realize that, you know, at the end of this year, every union contract, every municipal union contract will have expired. And I will have to say that the mayor leaving that for us, not having negotiated any of those contracts, is incredibly irresponsible. And if negotiating a contract is one of the responsibilities of the mayor, this mayor has been derelict in that and leaving it for the next person. That said, you know, it is the one thing that you really can't negotiate a contract in public, number one. Number two, not being the mayor of the city of New York, anybody who would negotiate that now, it doesn't make a lot of sense. It is one of the situations, though, I've said we have to sit at the table with the unions, open the books up, because we're going to have to understand where we are fiscally. We are in a very difficult and a very tough place. Go through those books together, understand where the money is and isn't, bring in some of those outsourced contracts we've been looking at hundreds of millions of dollars that have been contracted out. Bring some of those contracts back in-house, some of those dollars back in-house, and then sit down and look at other agencies, some of those commissioners that have pet projects, making sure that they work. What doesn't work, we bring those dollars back in-house, and then we sit down and have a discussion and a negotiation about the future and future contracts. That's what we need to do. Inside of time.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Mr. Weiner, how would you handle current city contracts left open by the current?
Right, well, I disagree with Mr. Thompson on this, in that I'm glad the mayor didn't negotiate these contracts. I'm glad he's leaving a blank slate for the next mayor. Anyone who wants to be mayor would want to have that responsibility. Look, even before I was running for office, even before I was running for mayor, I put out a book called Keys to the City, where I suggested the idea that, frankly, municipal employees have to pay something for their health care. And it's in their own interest. Here's the math. If you want to give teachers a 4% raise for 1 year, it costs about $1 billion. If we do nothing on health care, it's going to cost $1.3 billion to provide health care, because the cost is going up so much, about 40%. So I think the two things have to go hand in hand, and there's something else. There's another reason why I think workers should want to pay for their health care a little bit. Workers become better consumers, more demanding consumers if they pay even a little bit. That's why I proposed something called my 10-10-25 plan. 10% that municipal workers should pay for their health care. Retirees should pay 10% of their Part B Medicare, and 25% if you're a smoker, because you're adding more costs. We in Queens know we also have to get control of healthcare costs for another reason. We've lost 3 hospitals in this county. We've got to stop doing it this way. If I'm elected mayor, I am going to get control over that $17 billion, almost 20% of our budget, that we put into healthcare. I'm going to keep the money here. I'm going to use pharmacies locally, labs locally, hire doctors and nurses locally. I'm going to keep our healthcare money here in Queens.
Thank you, Mr. Weiner. Bill de Blasio and John Liu joining us. We're going to give them a chance to answer as well. Mr. de Blasio, again, how would you handle current city contracts left open by the current administration? 90 seconds.
Thank you, Rocco. And thank you to the Queens Courier, to Vicki and everyone who makes the Queens Courier great. Thank you for raising issues of concern to 2.3 million New Yorkers. On the labor question, I just want to disagree with the notion that you can go out to the media and negotiate with labor by putting out a lot of bombast and preconditions. It just doesn't work that way. I've spent a lot of my life in government. I have a clear sense of what actually gets things done. You don't tell folks in labor, here's how it's going to go, and you're just going to accept it. That's what Michael Bloomberg tried to do for many years. Great sound bites, great speeches, but it achieved almost nothing in terms of meaningful agreements that actually help move us forward on the labor front and on the budget front. So what we say to labor is, we are all in this together. The mayor did something horrible, in my opinion, by not dealing with those labor contracts. I think history will judge him very harshly. You don't do that to not only future mayors, you don't do that to the people of our city, to let the clock run in that manner and dig a hole. Labor contracts have to be dealt with as they come up. But you also don't negotiate through the media. You sit at the table. Labor has a right to put any one of its needs on the table.
10 seconds.
The mayor has a right to say, here's our reality, here's the things we need back, and that's how you actually get to a productive settlement that allows the city to move forward. And it will take us years to unravel the harm Bloomberg did on this front, but we'll do it respectfully with labor, treating them as partners.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. de Blasio. John Liu, is there any question? How would you handle city contracts left open by the current?
Thank you very much. Great to see everybody this morning, and I want to thank Vicki and the Queens Courier for bringing all this together. Terribly embarrassed that I live about 8 minutes away, and the last one to be here. It's been a long day already, and the weather certainly hasn't helped, but nonetheless, great to be back here in Flushing and in Queens. This issue of labor contracts, the outstanding contracts that total billions and billions of dollars, is a huge issue for this current administration as well as the next administration. It has just been an absolute failure on the part of the Bloomberg administration to go for 4 years and have all of these municipal contracts unresolved. This has never happened before, where pretty much every single one of the 300,000 employees has been left without a contract. So it has been an abject failure, and for the mayor to say there are not going to be any retroactive increases, that's the only way he can justify leaving office with a balanced budget. The reality is that these are hitting costs that will be incurred, personnel costs, that any manager of a business, large or small, or certainly any government, should take care of first and foremost. You take care of your personnel costs. That's management 101. And this administration has failed on that account. How do we deal with it going forward? Going forward, there is going to be money to be found within the budget as well as outside the budget that can be recouped. I believe that there are billions of dollars that are out there that will help us deal with the one-time expenses of these retroactive increases. But we can't simply say there's not going to be any increases because the pattern of the Bloomberg administration for the previous 8 years has been to grant these retroactive increases. So that's the expectation that's been levied in the workforce, that don't worry about your expired contracts. Keep working in good faith and we will make you whole somehow. The problem is that you can't, the morale is low, lower than at any point. And so we're going to have to deal with these labor issues through negotiations. Thank you.
Okay.